get there. So this is the point in the process where we transition from the master plan, the big idea, into the architectural principles that will guide what the campus ultimately looks like. So we as a team, working with the college, have established 8 or 9 major principles that are going to guide the architectural character and quality of the campus. Overlaying those are 3 overarching principles that we couldn't imagine doing a campus or a building here in the Coachella Valley without having these 3 principles. One is preserving views to the mountains. I think that's certainly key and a very important element of this community. The other is to make sure that what we create is world-class in terms of the instructional space for students. Students here deserve the very best in the architecture and in the spaces that we're providing. And then third is to respect the modernism history of the campus. And by respect, we don't mean duplicate, but draw and learn from the architects that preceded us. I think one of the most important things we learned in meeting with the Architectural Alliance is what they said to us: do not duplicate or replicate the architecture of modernism that's here today. Instead, be influenced by it. And imagine you are today those architects. You're afraid, but it's 2020. What are the things that would generate the architecture of today, the innovation, the materials, the design tools we have today that weren't available back in that period of time? To create an architecture that is both of its time, but allows it to be respected over time as well, much as the architecture here in Palm Springs already is. So to be forward thinking and to create a new chapter in the architecture of the Coachella Valley. What is that future? We obviously are going to be inspired by the mid-century modernism, the Palm Springs modernism, and the campus that came before us, the College of the Desert. Those are things that inspire the architecture, but yet we want to build on that and move forward. Key to this is creating an architecture that's student-centric. What do we mean by that? It's really planning for student behaviors, creating spaces that allow students to learn in new and creative ways, both now and into the future. So facilitating learning not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. We have a wonderful opportunity with 29 acres of land to use the entirety of the campus as a learning environment. We do know that multifunctional spaces are key. Spaces that can change over time, be used in different ways. The social spaces, something like 80% of a student's education occurs outside the classroom. It's in the spaces in between where they come together with their peers, with faculty members, so creating very hospitable spaces where education can be delivered. And a wide array of student environments. So not one environment that fits all, but instead being very flexible and creating a whole variety of student environments. We also want to be community focused. So on the one hand, we're student focused. On the other hand, we're community focused. And what does that mean? That means reaching out to the community in the architecture and creating an architectural vocabulary that's very flexible and very open and transparent. Unlike many other campuses or actually communities that are walled in and you don't experience it until you've entered through, we want this campus to be experienced as you approach it from all of the edges. So we're paying great attention to the edges of this campus. And then we're planning for the wide variety of behaviors that will occur on the campus, both inside space as well as outside space. What we've talked about is convertible architecture. No matter how much we think toward the future, we can assure you that whatever we design today is going to be different than what the needs are going to be 10 or 15 years from now. So we talk about architecture that's very flexible and can be, quote, converted over time. We also think about, particularly in this climate, an architecture that blurs the line between indoor and outdoor so that it's highly transparent and fluid as a student or faculty or community member moves from the inside of the space to the outside. So what we've seen, or what we've illustrated here, is this idea of transitional space. It's not really outdoors, it's not entirely indoors, but it's that in-between space. And where we were inspired by this is by Sunnylands. I think one of the things that it does so well is create that transition space. You don't quite know if you're inside or outside, but it's a very comfortable environment that's that in-between space. The other thing is, since we have the opportunity to create this campus from scratch, thinking about outdoor space much as you would indoor space, programming that outdoor space so it has a reason for being. So in our campus planning, outdoor space is not merely the space that's left over after we've designed or planned the buildings. Instead, that outdoor space is purposefully shaped by the buildings themselves, giving as much attention to the outdoor space as we are to the architecture in the indoor space. And the idea that we can create in this environment, even though we know there's harsh winds and the sun can be very hot, we can create these transition areas that are, in a sense, free space. They're outdoor space, but can be used for a wide variety of activities. We also, since a number of students, faculty, community members may be coming here for the first time, we want to create an architecture that is what we call intuitive, easy wayfinding, so you're not relying on signage and directions to find your space, but instead the architecture conveys building entries and the purpose of the buildings. So we've talked about access to the campus, vehicular arrival, so that the clarity is whether you're arriving from Talcowitz or Farrell or Baristo, you know where you are on campus and you know how to get to parking in the places that you want to go to. What many campuses have done and what we have the opportunity to do is to create an institutional identity immediately as you enter the campus. We've talked about this arc of innovation, potentially a pedestrian bridge, but to create a passageway as you come onto the campus from Farrell. Similarly, entrance to the Learning Hotel should be easily marked with a porte cochere and a welcoming environment. Respecting this arc that Mario had mentioned, which is the interior organization of the campus. And along that is where the building entrances would occur. And whether or not it's the Learning Hotel, the Event Center, the Culinary Institute, the Academic Accelerator, those building entrances should be highly visible both daytime and nighttime, recognizing that this is a campus that's likely to be as busy during the evening hours as it is in the daytime, so lighting is going to be key. And that connecting these buildings will be some sort of trellis or overhang, much as the existing College of the Desert has the arches that connect it, allowing for students to move within a shaded environment from north to south or east to west. And then we can't think about architecture without thinking about the context in which we're located. So we have a wide variety of building palettes and building materials to draw from. And we think that there's an opportunity to create a real richness. While we want to have some elements of continuity in the architecture, we also want to be varied enough so that we can draw on all the different architectural palettes and materials that are possible, whether it be architectural concrete, masonry, wood, providing a warmth to the architecture in the spaces. And then recognizing that we need to do a lot to shade. Many of our spaces are western facing, so how we cut down the shade and the heat glare and the sun is going to be very important, either through the glass itself or through sunshades. And an architecture that's very transparent. Many campuses of the 50s and 60s, it would be very hard to tell what activity is going on within a building. It's masonry, it could be a science lab inside, it could be a gymnasium. You have no sense of the activity within. This campus is going to be highly transparent with an architecture that allows the energy and activity from within to be conveyed to the outside. And looking at distinguishing palettes for different spaces within the campus. Along the lines of this, we're talking about an architecture that reveals, well, what does that mean? It means that you give a hint of the activity within. And this is a campus that has no back sides. So when we think of the campus, we think of the inside being along the arc, the very pedestrian-oriented environment that may be very open, very much connected to the outdoor spaces, very transparent, seeing what's going on inside. But then we also have an exterior edge the community edge. And what we're calling this is a curated view. We want to sort of give visitors and passersby a peek, sort of under the curtain, if you will. If you think about a stage play, you look behind the curtain and how interesting it is to draw you into the campus. So we talk about this as an architecture that reveals. It doesn't tell the entire story until you're inside the campus, but it gives you a glimpse of the activity that's within and encourages you to enter into the campus. And then finally, we can't be designing a campus today without thinking about environmental stewardship. And you've heard a lot about sustainability. I think it goes beyond sustainability, and that is teaching students about the importance of being stewards of their own environment, caring for that environment. So rather than hiding that off in the distance, we'd like to celebrate the central plant, the inner workings of the infrastructure that allows the campus to focus and to function. So making that part of the architectural vocabulary and making it key to the campus itself. That's it. That's all you're going to get today. I think what we're going to do